they're in that same area. lot of them are pretty interesting, learning some stuff and stuff. It's kind of fun.
Kids.
Yeah, this kid's 32. Still has no skill.
Did you get it handled?
Yeah, it had kicked me and locked me out of everything, so he was trying to fix it. So now why?
Okay, it's time. I call this meeting to order. Thank you and welcome for everyone that's here. All our board members are present. There's one addendum to add, and that's a supplemental levy fact sheet and presentation schedule. Today we'll begin with capital improvements project presentation presented by Bart Reed.
Thank you, Chairman Mattson, members of the board, and Superintendent Howell. It's good to be with you here this afternoon. Well, it's been an interesting year with everything going on, and that has trickled into planning for this coming year, our capital improvement needs and so forth. First of all, I'd like to just thank Mrs. Craner and Mr. Facer for being part of that committee. I know that Chairman Mattson came off from that committee this last year, but we appreciate your participation and involvement in that committee. This capital improvement program that we're involved with involves a number of staff from the school district. As you know, it involves the various elementary and secondary instructional directors, if you will, the athletic director, 2 school board members, and then our maintenance staff, who are really intimately involved in the planning and everything that goes on with our capital improvement program. What I think a lot of people don't really understand is that this timeline for our capital improvement program really goes on for about 10 months out of the school year. We start sometime early in July during the summer when we're doing current projects, starting to project for the following year. And we go through about September as we look at all of our different building needs, do the inspections, and do any revisions. Then in October, we start having the administration, soon after they've been back in school, we start having them come back and tell us what they want for the next year, which seems a little odd, but that's just the timeline that we have to abide by in order to make everything work well and to be planned out properly. And then in October, November, we start looking at the various projects that we have, how much money we have available for the projects we have in the district. And then at this point in time is when we make the final recommendations to the Board of Trustees for approval. And one of the things that will be a little bit different this year in contrast to previous years is that we are going to have to accelerate our bidding timeline in regard to especially HVAC and maybe even some other areas like roofing, just because material shortage, labor shortage, and things of that nature have really impacted what we've been doing. As an example, in our HVAC, we normally looked at about a 4 to 6 week timeline to ordering new heat pump units, new boilers, etc. Now we're looking at anywhere between probably 12 to maybe 16 weeks to get some of these items in. So as an example, we will be coming out next month to you in the board meeting in February for your approval on some HVAC items, which generally we wouldn't do until probably April typically. So some things have changed just a little bit there, but that's all right. We adjust and we just make sure that we can meet that short window of time that we have in the summer. For this upcoming school plant year, one of the things that we are looking at is this will be the 10th year of our current school plant facility levy. So beginning in fiscal year 23, we'll start a new school plant facility levy that was approved this past. Did we do that in March? think it was, wasn't it? Yes. That we did in March this last year. And so this summer that we're entering into will be the 10th of the 10-year levy of the current levy we have, and then we'll start over a new 10-year levy after that. For our revenue projections for this upcoming summer, we are looking at about $6.4 million in property taxes. That's up 5% from what the previous levy rate was, and that's what was voted upon by the taxpayers, that we can increase that 5% each year. We're looking somewhere around $50,000 from investment earnings. We receive money from the State Department of Education for lottery funds and also for maintenance match of our facilities, about $900,000 there. Our bus depreciation money is money that's on a depreciation schedule that helps offset part of the cost of our buses, $335,000, and that has to be used for the purchase of buses. And then the sale of assets is our annual auction that we do, $5,000, and we're estimating that we're going to have about a $5.5 million fund balance moving forward into this next year that will carry us forward. So overall, about $13.2 million of resources we have available for our school plant facilities. This is just kind of a quick breakdown of how important our school plant facility levy is. The big red area that you see there is our the school plant facility levy does come from property taxes, and that's 83% of our current capital budget. If we did not have a school plant facility levy, all of those funds would have to come from our general fund, and that would be quite a burden on our district with all of our programs and everything that we've been doing. You can see that our state maintenance match is about 12%, and then the others are smaller portions. On the expenditure side of things, this is where we start putting the planning and our various estimating and items in place. We have what we call replacement schedules, and we have been maintaining this now for probably about 30 years, I guess, overall, these replacement schedules. In fact, hot off the press today is the newest and greatest replacement schedule book. And, you know, this doesn't look like much, but this is a combination of hundreds of hours of our maintenance staff looking at our roofing, boilers, our HVAC systems, going through every single school for carpeting and tile needs and et cetera, just to make sure that we're putting the money where we have the greatest need and the highest priority. And so when you see that $4.6 million in that replacement schedule, we'll talk a little bit more about that, but that's the majority portion of what we spend our money on. Then the various equipment requests there from the departments or from the directors of the school allocations, which total about $325,000 roughly. That's what we use to do replace a chair in a school, or to buy a file cabinet, or to do any of the equipment needs that directors or the schools may happen to have. So all those needs add up to close to $5 million, and we kind of call that our required needs for our district. These are the replacement schedules here, and I just want to draw your attention, for those of you who don't sit on the committee, to just a couple of items, if I could. Get on the right page here. Under asphalting, we have about $138,000. Most of that is for seal coating. So to protect our current surfaces, we seal coat. We typically, if we do that on a regular basis, you'll get another 15, 20 years out of your parking lots if you're able to do those sorts of things. Under our boilers, just a couple of highlights. One is we are looking at replacing all the boilers at Pocatello High School, and also changing over the air handlers. And then we also replaced a boiler in our central kitchen, which basically was on its last leg. And so that has actually already been taken care of. It hasn't been pulled out of service, but it has been decommissioned just because it was in such bad shape there. Our buses, the $647,000 represent 7 buses that we would replace on our replacement schedule this coming summer. Under carpeting and tile, the $325,000, most of that is, well, it's probably evenly split. If you've been into Hawthorne Middle School and you've heard us say this before, and you look at the tile, it's kind of that black, grayish, beigeish type. It's really dated. It's probably the best tile that we have in the district, and it'll probably last another 50 years, but it really kind of sets not a real great tone in the school there because it takes you back in time about 50 years. So we are looking at replacing all of the tile in the hallways at Hawthorne on the upper, middle, and the lower floors. And then the following year, start moving into the classroom, replacing tile in there. So that's a good portion of it. And then the other part of that is, let's see, believe it or not, replacing carpet in Century High School, which is now 22 years old. And normally we're happy if we get 15 to 18 years out of carpet, but that's 22 years old. So they're about half the school will receive carpet replacement there at Century in those schools. Then under HVAC, which is $880,000, that is to replace the other half of the heat pump units at Century High School. Again, a school that is our newest school, but in relation to equipment, that equipment's now 23 years old. So that will complete all the equipment replacement at Century High School. This is phase 2 of that. And then we will start in phase 1 of Pocatello High School, changing over the main air handler units. And then the following summer, the summer after this coming summer, we would start getting into the heat pump replacements on that school. Those Pocatello High School and Century High School's HVAC systems were done in the same year, which in retrospect probably isn't a good thing because then we have a real high demand for HVAC, and we'll try to break that up down the road here in the future. Under lighting, just wanted to bring to your attention that we're looking at completely putting in new lighting at Ellis Elementary School. That has not had a new lighting upgrade since that school was built. So we'll put in new LED lighting there. And then also the gym at Century High School, and I think that that's the small auxiliary gym. Under restrooms, $192,000. That is to do the main floor restrooms, I believe it is, at Alameda, both the boys and girls. And there's another set that needs to be done the following year upstairs as well. And then also to do the kitchen tile at Hawthorne in the cafeteria area, which is really bad and starting to come apart. Under roofing, $295,000. We have the 2 modulars at Lewis and Clark that sit outside the school. Those roofs have been leaking, and we've had a tough time maintaining those modulars. We'll replace those roofs there. About half of Irving Middle School's roof will be done, the main gym, and then also the South Addition part will take care of about half of the school there. And that will be the $295,000. And then just one note that we don't have changed on here, but you'll see that there's $761,000 dedicated to technology out of our school plant facility fund. And as I've talked with Dr. Howell, and as we've looked at our CARES fund and the one-on-one devices and the big influx of technology that we've been able to do through federal funding, that money will be reallocated back to school plant facility, and we'll have to come up with a new 5-year plan for technology. So that is sitting there, but that will be adjusted just so that you are aware of that. Any questions on the replacement schedules before I move on? All right. This next section just shows the graph of how the school plant or the SIP replacement schedules have varied over years, just kind of a historical perspective, if you will. Under the additional major projects, let me just identify a number of those that you'll be seeing this coming summer. Let's see, Pocatello High School Phase 2, one of the things that we have not included in the initial bid is all the furniture that will go into those 9 classrooms and the commons area there. So we budgeted $350,000 in that respect to finish up that project that will be completed this fall. The other thing that was not included in the bid because we were worried about where the numbers would come in and the price for that project was the area between Units 1 and Units 2, which is the that cement, all those cement squares. We're looking at putting that into an outdoor type commons area with some trees, some benches and some seating, some new sidewalks to direct traffic in that area there. And also to provide adequate drainage so that it drains off and goes into a drain system that we have in that area. Right now it kind of pools up and gets a little slick. We have two smaller projects of doing some awnings over our modular classrooms at those schools that you can see there. One of the things that we are still waiting on, and it's just a slow, tedious process, it seems like, but if you look here under Lincoln where it says modular classroom, you know we had the fire, wow, it's been over a year ago now. It was not this past December, but the December before that. And we are still waiting for federal approval to replace that modular. We have the funding, but we don't have the approval in place. So we're hopeful that we get that approval done and that we will be able to set a new 4-classroom modular to the east of the current building in that little grassy area. And we'll have to do water and sewer. We'll have to level the land out there and get the site prepared for that to sit on that pad. So that is something we're anticipating, but we do not have approval yet. We've set aside $75,000 on the rebranding of the mascot, and we feel that we'll probably be well under that amount when that time comes. Hawthorne, some major projects coming from the Athletic Facilities Committee. We're looking at outdoor lighting and a press box and bleachers similar to what we did at Century High School a year or so ago. Then at Highland, we're looking at finishing up, working through the concession stands with the donor on that property, or on that project, I should say, better said, and doing a restroom and press box, and we also have to do sewer and water. So we have a little bit to do planning-wise to make that happen, but we're looking to doing that this summer. And then at Irving, which is our worst track that we didn't even use last year because of the condition of it, we're looking at removing that track, infilling that back in with fill and compacting that, and then putting new sod down and a sprinkler system over the area where the track was removed. And then the other thing that we're still working on right now is that rock wall on the far west side of that property. It's been there for a long, long time, and we know that it was part of volunteer groups that came in and work groups from the the CCP, I want to say, or something. What was it? CCC. But that wall is totally deteriorated off, and we've been working with the city of Pocatello to work on how we can remove that wall, because it's right on the property line between the properties adjacent to the school there. But we're hopeful that we can put up a wall similar to what we did on the south side of the property, just a cement wall, put up a chain link fence to fence that property off and make it look a little bit nicer and a little bit safer than what it is right now. Let's see, just a few last little projects, a few things that we have to do with some storage at the maintenance department, and then the last two items. We have a lot of brick pointing and some masonry work and repair that needs to be done at those schools that you can see: Gate City, Jefferson, Washington, Irving, Alameda, and Syringa. And they're, in some cases, getting to be a major concern. So we're hopeful. There's not a lot of contractors that do masonry work anymore, and so we're hopeful that we can get all of that done and started this summer. So all those projects total up to $2,065,000. This is just the rest of the expenditure summary here, where we had 8.2 left to spend. We have $5.7 million sitting in our sinking reserve fund. We have our required maintenance schedule, which is school, playground, bark, panic bar replacements, things of that nature, $295,000. I'm happy to report that out of Exhibit A and B, which are interior and exterior building needs that are submitted by the schools, that we were able to do probably 85% of the requests that they had for their buildings. The ones that we didn't do were projects that were of sizable amount, that may have been hundreds of thousands or maybe even millions of dollars that they had in their request. But all the smaller projects, we will be able to do. You see the additional major projects that we just talked about, that $2.065 million. And all of those projects there will take us down to a balanced budget right there. So the thing that I want to impress, I guess, is the blue line up there, the sinking reserve fund of $5,065,000. $738,000 is money that is left and set aside in the school plant facility fund to do things like the Pocatello High School project that we're doing, or the Franklin Middle School addition that we did 15 years ago, or Alameda renovation, or New Horizon. That's what this money has been set aside for. So that's at the board's discretion. It's just sitting in reserve right now with no specific purpose. These last two things are just kind of a summary of the improvements and renovations that we've talked about there, so I won't go into any detail on that. And this is, again, that sinking reserve I was just referring to, $5,738,000. And again, I think it's always important to thank our public for their continued support that we have had in our school plant facility funds. A lot of school districts do not have a school plant facility fund, but we have had one now for 60 years. And with this renewal of this next 10-year levy, we'll have it for 70 years. And I think that shows the commitment in our community for education. And I think it also speaks to their approval of how we utilize these funds for our buildings and for the maintenance of our school facilities. So with that, I would stand for any questions if you may have any.
Yeah.
All right.
I only
None?
have one.
Okay, yes.
How close on schedule is Pocatello High School?
That is a great question. I ask myself that about every day. They give us a construction timeline every month. And so far, that construction timeline date has not changed in regard to the completion date. Let me just, since you asked the question, let me just give you a little status update of where we're at with that, and then I'll come back and answer the question a little bit more specifically. So yesterday, or let's see, what is this, Tuesday? Yes, yesterday, they finished the last pour of all the second-story floor concrete. So they did part of it during the Christmas break, where they did the main interior building under the roof section, and then they just finished doing the upper stairs and then that walkway that leads over to Unit 1. So that was just done yesterday. And that was supposed to be done 2 months ago. But what they have been doing in the meantime is they have been infilling other work where work isn't done. So a lot of the HVAC trunks have been placed and put up. The fire sprinkler system started, some of the main lines, some of the copper for the plumbing. So they've been filling things in. If you drive by the school, you'll see that it's all totally framed up now. Probably 85% of it is covered in with the DENS coating, the insulation board on the outside. So the next part is to get the roof on there so that it's not leaking inside the building, because you can't do the electrical, as you know, Mr. Facer, until that's all buttoned up there. And so things are coming along. I would say that if everything goes according to plan, they possibly will meet that deadline that we have of August 1st. That's what we are still shooting for. I would say, based upon the fact that we gave them 2 months early start because of COVID, and we got started on this project, which was well needed, that they're probably 2 months behind. But I have to remind myself that when they talked about what their goal was before we got started, they wanted a building that was enclosed, had a roof on and enclosed by Christmas, and we're pretty close to that. So I would say they're probably a few weeks behind, but they're trying to find ways to make up in that schedule. We watch it day to day. And we have been very fortunate, I guess I'll say, with the weather this year, that we have not had the typical snow that we've normally had, and that has helped us to stay on schedule. Otherwise, I think we'd be a few months behind.
Are you still happy with the contractor?
Yes, very happy with the contractor. They do a quality job. They are very professional in their approach. Not that we haven't had a few little hiccups and things that we've needed to check on and visit about. I appreciate the fact that they're also proactive in things that they say, this isn't quite going to work right. How can we do this? And so I think overall they've been a very outstanding contractor. And so we hope to see that all the way through the completion of this project here. I think I have one more item, but whenever you're ready, Chairman. So,
No more questions, so let's move on.
okay. During the break that we had, we received a request from the city of Pocatello, specifically from Jeff Mansfield, who is the Public Works Director for the city of Pocatello. And you may remember a few years ago when they were looking at that intersection of Jefferson and Alameda, the controversy and not being able to have a meeting of the minds of what that intersection would look like. You know, they wanted to straighten it out, but then there was cost of property and just, they talked about different ways of doing some U-round turnarounds and all those sorts of things. This is kind of a spin-off of that a little bit there. They did some improvements a little over a year ago to that intersection. I'll call them kind of beautification and safety improvements, but one of the things that was not completed was the parking lot that just sits right there in that corner just across the street from Tendoy to the north of Tendoy. And this request is that the city of Pocatello is moving forward with a parking lot renovation to that lot right there, where they'll have some trees and some landscape and a parking lot. And they have asked if we would partnership with them in this parking lot renovation. We would use that parking lot, obviously. It would become a public parking lot, but we also use the Alameda State Center, which is owned by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. They've been very good at allowing us to park and utilize that parking for decades, I'll say. We also have minimal off-street parking, but we would benefit if our teachers and our parents could park in that new parking lot area. This is an unbudgeted request, obviously, which comes in at the middle of the year, so to speak. The land ownership would not change. The city of Pocatello wishes to still maintain ownership in all the property, so they're just asking if we would be willing, in a partnership relationship, to put something toward this parking lot that would benefit our school in that area. And so, as I visited with Dr. Howell, and as we looked at their request, knowing that we've lost $1.5 million in student enrollment this year and other things that have gone on, we feel that we could contribute $25,000 toward the cost of that project as our share. And that would be what we would present to you as a school board of trustees for your approval. We're certainly open to discussion. They requested more from our district, as their letter states, but we felt comfortable with the amount that we put forward there.
Why a parking lot in that whole area? What makes sense about that? No, they want to beautify it, and that's great, but that's not a parking lot.
I think it has to do with federal dollars that are tied into that project, and I may be totally misspeaking, so please don't take that as that is what it is. But I think that this is the final phase of having to complete the beautification effort in that intersection area. And so that they are having to do this anyway, and we're wondering if we would be willing, since we would benefit from this, to make a contribution toward that project. So, yeah, certainly it's probably not parking for Mavic across the street or the pizza place or whatever, but I know that we would definitely utilize that parking there.
Yes, but
And in the future, there may be where that intersection does get revamped, and at that point in time, maybe there would be revisions to that parking lot where if the intersection changed up, that would partially go away or be a different use. I can't speak to what their plans are, what the future may hold with that, but yeah, it doesn't. I understand your concern. It doesn't really make sense, but I think that it's part of what they are required to do because of the funds that they have received in the past.
okay, just to me, grass and trees would be much better than making the whole thing a parking lot that no one's going to park in. This,
I understand.
Okay. Second of all, how long are we going to have Tenboy? If something happens to that Jefferson, it's going to take up everything. It could.
Yeah, in the day, it was probably in a great location to have an elementary school. It wouldn't be our top priority site is in regard to building a new school in that area right there, obviously. It is a school that only has about roughly 200 kids at the present time, maybe slightly over a student enrollment of 200, similar to Washington, if you will. But for now, I don't know that there's any plans on
No, there's not.
replacing that school. We've talked about improvements to Idaho, possibly doing an addition to bring that school up to a 650 student elementary school. But those are all things, I think, down the road in the future. But for the present, we are planning on using Tendoy. Whether we will or not 5 or 10 years down the road is just to be determined, so.
Well, it seems to me like when they brought that whole project to us years ago about changing that intersection there, and it was safety concerns of the safety and the number of accidents they'd had there
Mhm.
and everything. And somehow, it didn't happen quite the way they brought it, the proposal that they brought to us. I mean, it got changed a little here and there, and
Yeah.
as to my
Mhm.
recollection, it didn't quite happen the way they said it was going to happen.
Yeah, and it was really very difficult, I know, with the city council at that time of the meeting of the minds. Everyone had a kind of their own idea of what they thought might work best, and they never, my understanding was that they never could really come to a majority consensus of what they wanted that intersection to really be. What they have done this last year, I think it's been a little bit over a year now, is you know that if you are coming south on Jefferson, that you cannot now turn left and go right directly into, I think that's East Alameda Road, and go right there in front of Tendoy. You have to go down another block and then go up a couple and circle back around. So they have done some things that really has made it safer, I think, in that intersection area, and it's made it less congestive in front of Tendoy School overall. But what they will do in the future with that is, I don't know that anyone knows at this point in time, so.
But I do agree with them. I think we would use that parking lot.
I am sure that we will.
Tendoy would use that parking lot for events or different things that occur and go on.
It's really in about the same proximity as the LDS church right there as far as parking, whether you park there or whether you parked in the other one. It's really almost kind of sixes a little bit, but I know that, and if we have after-school activities, we have parent night, back to school night, or some carnival that they have in the school when we're able to come back and do these sorts of things, and the public comes, it certainly will be used at that point in time, for sure.
Right.
Related to all that, one of the big concerns at the time was the safety of kids getting to school.
Mhm.
Has that been addressed fully?
I think it has. We have a crossing guard in that area, and we also, when we changed the elementary and secondary boundaries, and we went through that part of that, we do not have a lot of students and learners that actually come from the west side of Jefferson, if you will. There are some that come over for middle school to a bus stop in that area, but we don't have a lot of crossing, but we do have a crossing guard there. But the boundaries, changing those boundaries so that it doesn't draw from the west side of Jefferson helped a lot. We haven't had any accidents, fortunately, and it does help to be in partnership with the city with a crossing guard. And we have crossing guards in probably a half dozen of our schools where we have those safety concerns. So that will not be an action item for you this afternoon, but would be for our next board meeting next week.
Okay.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you. Let's see, next supplemental levy update, Ms. Fisher.
Good afternoon. Hope everybody's doing well today.
Mhm.
So in your board packet, we have been finalizing the information that will go out to the community about the supplemental levy renewal election on March 9th. There is a new addendum to your packet. There were just a couple of minor punctuation errors that were corrected on that. This has now been posted to the website on the homepage, very clear and easy to find. So if you have any questions or want to make any changes to this, that's an easy swap out. So basically, the purpose of this document is to educate those voting about what is the supplemental levy and really giving them the details about what this money goes for. So in the left column is really just information about what is the supplemental levy, what does it fund. The right-hand column is more about School District 25. Get to know your school district, how many schools we have, how many learners we serve, how many staff members we employ, and then some of the achievement facts, preparing learners for college and careers, some of those stats, scholarships that have been awarded, the pathways that our students have access to for college and careers, career technical education, and then some of the academic performance, and then other highlights including the Chromebook initiative and that rollout of that one-to-one. So every one learner has a Chromebook device assigned to them, which has really helped us with remote learning. On the second page, we have, and this is really the heart, this is where people turn to immediately, is how does this supplemental levy impact me? What is the approximate cost to me as a homeowner and a taxpayer in our county and in the school district? So we've got that, and this chart, thanks to Mr. Reed that put this together, really shows how that percent has decreased over the years. And so this is all based on current assumptions and calculations, but based on those calculations, we've been able to show that the overall burden has decreased to our taxpayers. The vote, other very important information, Tuesday, March 9th. Early voting starts, February is going to be here before we know it, and that early voting starts on Tuesday, February 9th, and then it ends the Friday before the in-person election, so Friday, March 5th. And then on the right-hand column, just more about the specifics about the levy. It's renewed every 2 years at the rate that you approved earlier in December, I believe. That levy has remained unchanged for 6 years. If it passes, it will have remained at the same rate for 8 years, which is also very important for people to understand. Also, this is kind of new. We wanted to really communicate that the levy is a fixed amount. It does not fluctuate based on the amount of money that Bannock County collects from taxpayers. It is that 9.25. That's how much we get no matter how much those homes are valued at. It's not a new tax, as we all know. It's been in place similar to the school plant facility levy for more than 60 years. And all these funds stay local, and they do help us retain and recruit qualified staff members, which is important. And it takes a simple majority to pass. So that is the levy sheet in a nutshell. Do you have any questions or concerns or things that you would like to see on this information sheet?
What kind of feel do you get for the public acceptance of this, Courtney?
I don't have a great feel yet. We haven't started our presentations, which I'll go over that schedule with you in a moment. The basis that I have for support is that 60 years of continuous support, much like the school plant facility levy. But I haven't heard a lot of input yet. We just posted this to the website. I'm sure that it will start popping up on the discussion groups, on social media and that, and I'll keep you informed.
Yeah, I was just kind of wondering what effect that
Right.
article in the paper had, might have.
And that article was incorrect. As I recall reading, it said it was for plant facilities levy. And
Which article are you referring to?
The one that Armstrong wrote.
Oh, okay. The opinion piece that Mr. Armstrong wrote and was printed on Sunday. Yes, that article mentions that this is, I think he's referring more to the school plant facility levy, so there's,
That's what it was.
right. And I think there's a mention in that article that it doesn't go to any staff salaries, which we know that is incorrect. The supplemental levy does in fact help us pay for paraprofessionals and other qualified staff,
Well, he referred to it as the wrong levy. That's
Yeah.
what he simply did.
right?
So,
And we'll have information going out, and articles and this information, like I said, it's already posted to the website, so we'll start sharing that information now that we have everything more finalized.
I do like the way this is laid out. I think it looks really nice. I do have a question on where it says to homeowners, and it says the annual payment and the percent decrease, and it shows, like for 2021, it'll be a 6.3% decrease. And that's to what you were paying, is that correct?
That's based on what you were paying if your home was valued at $100,000.
And then it shows how much it's gone down every year.
Yes.
What you were paying, which
Yes.
I think will be helpful to taxpayers.
I think what the purpose was to really show how the district has been mindful and fiscally responsible to try to keep that at a reasonable rate.
You know, which is hard sometimes when as county, they see their taxes going up and up, you know, and they see that part of that goes to schools, you know, so I think
Right.
this will help.
And there's been some misperceptions out there that we try very hard to combat, and we'll continue to try to just present the facts. That's all we can do right now. To say, you know, people think that the amount fluctuates based on how much Bannock County collects, and that's inaccurate. So it's really just important for us to try to communicate this as much as we can in as many, you know, personal situations, public meetings. If you want to go over the segue into the schedule, we've got about 24 presentations scheduled, and as you know, we go to our staff in schools to present this information and answer any questions that staff members have about the supplemental levy. We also go out to community organizations such as Bannock Civitan and the Rotary Clubs, League of Women Voters, to share this information and answer any questions. So we have about 24. We usually do upwards of 60 presentations. I have sent out a lot of email requests asking. One of the challenges that we're going to have is that people aren't meeting in person. I heard back from the Greater Realtors Association this morning that they have not been meeting in person. Their board has only been meeting over Zoom. So those kinds of organizations have said we'll send the flyer with a note to our contingency. So we're just going to have to think of creative ways to get this information in front of the people and the people voting in the election.
You do want our help.
Absolutely, yes. So you have in your board packet the sketch of the levy presentation schedule. I think it's very important that our board members are visible right now. So please sign up for any and all presentations that you are willing to go to answer questions. And we will, Shauna Sprague helps me flesh this out, and so we will continue to keep you updated as we confirm other dates.
Okay.
Any other
Board.
questions?
I guess I'm just thinking about we're talking about Zoom not being a good way to present. I would say try that.
Oh, no, not that it's not a good way to present. It may be the only way to present.
Yeah.
Just these organizations have shifted the way that they're meeting, and so, right.
Haven't
So
we?
sometimes, as in the example of GPAR, Greater Realtor Association of Pocatello, only their board is meeting. So it's a much smaller contingent. So I can certainly ask to present to them, but then they'll have to disseminate that information to their members, which they have many, many members, in a different way. That's what I was referring to.
Okay.
Thank you for asking me to clarify that.
Okay, any other questions?
And if you have any
That'll work.
organizations that you know of or that you don't see on that presentation schedule, please just send me a quick note and I will get it added.
I can't bring mine up right now.
It won't open.
We've
It's
lost
not
our
opening.
Wi-Fi.
Oh,
Well, it's really slow. You click
Well,
on it, it
completely
takes about
gone.
5 minutes
Mine
to
won't
get it.
even
I
open.
will print you a hard copy that I will deliver to you as you walk out the door today.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, I don't know what it is, it's,
Oh, right, so I'm up next, and I'm having
Well,
the
no.
same issue?
we can see, okay,
Oh.
all right.
Okay, so, yeah, we'll have that for you in hard copy. That's what I was going to suggest to Mrs. Fisher. So for you today is an amended
20, 21, 22 board meeting schedule, the calendar. And historically, as you know, we have attended the ISBA Day on the Hill. That will be virtual, so in its place, this year in February, we could ask the board to schedule a potential work session, so we could just hold that date, as well as in April. Likewise, in the past, a number of members have attended the law conference. And so that too, we know, we just got notification in the last couple of weeks that that was going to be canceled. And so with that, we could also schedule a potential work session during that same time frame. And so the board will be asked to take a look at that for next week to amend the calendar.
Okay.
That's it.
Is that it?
That's it.
That's quick.
Yes.
Yeah, it's time for request for public comment, and there is no public today with us, so without further ado, this concludes this meeting.
I'll second.
And great, we are adjourned. Done.
That was fast.
Yeah, that was quick. What? What, nothing's happening, or? It was, I think it was 2 months ago that we went till 2:30
Yeah.
on a work session, and, okay, all right,
Yeah.
I am not complaining. But there's something wrong, I'm still not bringing up the meeting schedule.
Right. That's what I was